Saturday night, former president and current GOP nominee who is getting set to accept the nomination at the Republican National Convention this week came within 1 inch of losing his life. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, has spoken 3 times since that shooting. He spoke very briefly on Saturday night, looked half out of it, spoke again yesterday afternoon, and then addressed the nation last night. And Joe Biden had an opportunity to lead, to be a leader when it came to bringing down the temperature in the room. He said the right things. He gave the platitudes. He did all that. But something that Joe Biden said at the start of his 6.5-minute speech last night stood out to me. And I don't believe anybody else is bringing this up or will bring this up. And it's a 20-second clip that in the first minute of what Joe Biden said a lot.
Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back.
Yesterday's shooting at a Donald Trump rally in Pennsylvania. If you just woke up from a coma at about 7 o'clock last night and you heard the president describe what happened that way, a shooting at a Donald Trump rally in Pennsylvania, what would you assume that to mean? Somebody shot up the rally, right? Somebody showed up at a rally and tried to, kill as many people as they could. It's not insignificant. I mean, the White House has hours to pore over that speech. Multiple people have eyes on that speech. And that is a downplaying of what took place on Saturday, is what that is. I haven't heard anybody else bring that point up. The way the president described what happened on Saturday, the shooting at a Donald Trump rally. No. Your chief political opponent was the target of an assassination. That shooter was not there to shoot anybody else. That shooter wasn't there to harm anybody else. That shooter was there to take the life of your chief political opponent. That's not a shooting at a rally, Mr. President. That's not what that is. And then when Joe Biden has an opportunity to lead the way, to say, I will begin the effort to turn down the temperature, he says, we got to turn it down. But he's not willing to lead the way on turning it down.
The political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high. I've said it many times that the choice in this election we make in this election is going to shape the future of America and the world for decades to come. I believe that with all my soul.
And that's fine. He's allowed to believe that with all his soul. But it was the night before in Michigan when this happened at Joe Biden's rally, and I'm just wondering when he's going to lead the way, if he's going to practice what he's preaching last night.
Most importantly, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, Trump is a threat to this nation. He led a violent mob on January 6th to overturn the 2020 election. Hold on to power. The election I won by 7 million votes.
Joe Biden could have addressed the nation last night and said, Donald Trump, I disagree with his policies tremendously. And I will spend the next 4 to 5 months telling you why I believe his policies are bad for you. But I admit here from the Oval Office tonight that Donald Trump is not a threat to democracy. He is not a fascist. He is not, as my wife has called him, evil.
Own chief of staff said he called POWs and those who died in war losers and suckers. He's evil. He said he didn't want to be seen with injured veterans because it didn't look good for him.
He could have truly led the way with some of those lines last night. He didn't. And, he checked off the boxes. But did he really lead? And for a guy who, 50 years in politics has never led, who's always been a follower, I'm not shocked that he didn't lead. And you shouldn't be either. And that's why, I take it very much with a grain of salt when I hear what I heard from the president last night. Because even since then, some of his own members of Congress, like AOC, are still out there screaming fascism around Donald Trump. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Jonathan. He's in Kansas City. Hello, Jonathan. Good morning. You're on KCMO. What's on your mind?
Hey, Pete. How you doing?
All right, Jonathan.
All right. So you're talking about raising the temperature. Here's the thing. That pot has been boiling since about 2000. For almost a quarter of a century, we have had many, many close elections, sides that vilify each other in ways that didn't happen in Bill Clinton years and before, where you'd have multiple parties take over different branches of government, and they would just work together. You'd have another election in 4 years, and you moved on with life. Nobody ever said before 2000, we can't have the other side winning. It's the end of the republic. We won't have democracy, and, the other side is Hitler. They did that with Bush. They villainized McCain despite his war record. They said, but Joe Biden said, well, he's going to bring you all back in chains with Mitt Romney. And the ironic part is those three people, the left now idolizes and says, those are good Republicans. I'm like, well, how can Hitler ever turn good? Like, I don't see a revisionist of Hitler in the 50 years that we haven't had him. So, their words fall on deaf ears, but they have been raising the temperature for almost 3 decades now. Obama made it a lot worse. I would hope we would lower the temperature, but the fact we've been doing it for a quarter of a century, which is multiple generations now, it gives me pause. And to your point, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt that they are ever going to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. I am very much taking it with a grain of salt. Listen, even over the last 2 weeks since Joe Biden's horrific debate performance, obviously it's been a key topic on this show because that's been the biggest topic in the country and the world and here in Kansas City as well. I mean, it's just had a much more national lean over the last 2 weeks based on what's happened in the news cycle. And I like to think that, we've certainly criticized some of the policies as I see them and as many of you see them. And yes, we've also looked at the situation with the sitting president and said, is he able to physically and mentally do the job? But it's a fine line, not even all that fine of a line, between saying, hey, the guy can't do the job and his policies stink, and literally the country will end and we are entering a fascist state, or it's Hitler 2.0 if somebody gets elected. And those are two vastly different things. And you'd like to think that those are the things that can be stamped out, but I'm not going to sit here with a lot of confidence and say they can be.